Alright, today we'll be talking about translations and everything that goes with it. Okay, so real fast, we're just going to talk about transformation. Now, transformation is just when you take an object, and let's say an object like this. Let's say a quadrilateral ABC. So, let's go A, B, C, and D. Okay, so let's say you take that object and then you draw it somewhere else, and you draw it a little bit bigger or something, or you rotate it. Okay, you rotate it to look something like this. Okay, or you do a reflection about the x-axis. You know, there's a lot of different things you can do. Like, for example, you could actually have this be, let me see, this would be D prime, C prime, A prime, and B prime. Okay, and I'll talk about what the primes mean in a second. Okay, so that's a transformation. It's where you take an object that already exists and you either increase it or shrink it and you change its position. Okay. Let's delete. Okay. All right, now that was just a straight up simple problem right there. Okay. But what we want to talk about right now is the differences between images and pre-image. Okay. Okay, this is the pre-image. Oops, let's get rid of all the caps. I'm not yelling at you guys. Okay, this is the pre-image. Okay, and this is the image. All right, and the image is usually denoted by capital letter, well, obviously capital letters, but with primes on them. Okay, so for example, on this one I would have B prime, this would be D prime, and this one would be C prime. Okay? Alright, so this right here is actually an isometry. Okay? So an isometry is where I take the same exact pre-image, keep the size, but translate it over. And that's where the translation comes into play. Okay? And this is almost actually like a glide. Okay? Okay. Now, transformation, now obviously this is obviously going to be an isometry, and the shapes I drew before were not an isometry, but they will actually translate from one point to the next. So obviously B translates to B, A translates to A. You could almost pretend like this is coming out of the object. Okay, and D to D. Okay, so these two shapes are definitely going to be a transformation. Okay, and it is going to be an isometry. Once again, forgot that I had cap locks. Okay, so this is definitely going to be an isometry. Okay, now here's the cool thing is you can do several things to it. Now, obviously, we're going to be dealing with just this, so we would just say quadrilateral A, B, C, D is going to transform to quadrilateral A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. Okay, and so that's how we actually translate it. So the one that comes right here is the pre-image, and this one is actually just going to be the image. Okay, and there's going to be a lot of different ways we can actually represent the transformations or the translations or the dilations or the rotations. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Now, to define our first is going to be a translation. So translation is a transformation that maps all points of a figure the same distance in the same direction. Okay, so that's the exact definition that we're going to need to talk about a translation. So a translation, let me fix that real. Let's move it over. There we go. That looks a lot better. So a transformation that maps all the points of a figure the same distance in the same direction. Okay, so as you can see, if I were to actually draw lines through here to mark congruency, you would actually see that these would all be the same and they would all be parallel. So that's another interesting aspect about them as well. Okay, and so that's how you can really check. Mainly you're going to be using a lot of eyeballs and everything, but what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking the original point and adding a new point to it, or adding or subtracting depending on what you wanted to do. So here's the algebra of it. So you would take x and add plus or minus a, and then you would take y and then add another number as well. So be plus or minus, let's say b. Okay, so the translation is actually just going to look like this. Okay, so a simple one that we're going to work with in a second, we will actually look at on Desmos. Alright, so let's say we had triangle ABC. Now just pretend we're just focusing on the vertices because that's the only part we really care about. The other parts can be drawn. Okay, let's say we want to translate, let's say 4 down, 1 to the left. Okay, so what we would have to do is translate that to each point. Okay, so that means for each point we would be doing x minus 4, or no, sorry, x minus 1, comma, y minus 4. Okay, all right, now if you notice I reversed that because the 4 down is definitely going to be working with the y. So what I would be doing is I would be going 1 minus 1, comma, 2 minus 4. That would be the new point right there. Okay. All right, and then the next point would be 3 minus 1, comma, 1 minus 4. And as you can see, it definitely translates to the new image. And you have to make sure you put in the commas as you go. 1 minus 1, comma, 1 minus 4. And voila, I have successfully translated this triangle from this position at pre-image to this position. Now if you wanted to see if it was an isometry, you would check the distances between these two and these two. Obviously that's 1. The distances between these two is 2. And the distances here are going to be your Pythagorean theorem, which is 1 squared plus 2 squared, which is the square root of 3. Okay. And oh, look, lo and behold, I created a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Pretty cool. Okay. So as you put in everything, you make sure you're consistent and you be careful, because I almost accidentally did x minus 4 and y minus 1 just because of what I saw. So you have to be careful how you work with it. Okay? And that is pretty much it for translations. Just take your time with it. Now, one thing we did not talk about was a composition of functions. Now, composition of transformations is going to be several translations together, or it could be a translation and a dilation, or a translation, a rotation, and a reflection. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you could do. So you just have to pay attention to what you're exactly doing, and in what order you go with should be very careful with it. Okay, so for your coordinate plane, here's your ways to do the translation, but usually translations are really easy just to follow what's going on. Okay, all right, that's it for translations. I'll come back with more transformations in a little bit.